We're close?
Yeah.
You're rolling. Okay. Let's see, this is June 12th, 2015. I'm Tom Blanchard, and with me is Loretta Sherritts. And we're here to interview EILEEN Shivers,
Right.
who has been a longtime resident and fan of BAYHORSE. So let's begin by you just talking about where you were born and your family and your connections with BAYHORSE, and we'll just move from there.
Okay. I was born in Clayton, Idaho, right across from the museum. That creek in the house is still there. It was a mining engineer's home to begin with, so we've been with miners all my life. And then my grandmother told my dad he better get off here. My dad was superintendent here in the early 1920s, right here at BAYHORSE, and my grandmother Sullivan said, "You better buy a ranch, Jim." That's all you ever did was buy a ranch if you're going to stay around. And so we bought a ranch up Squaw Creek, and I was raised there. And I had I had a brother born there, and we also my dad got into another mining at South Butte. Started to build, getting the mining really hard. Built a lot of things out of the ore brought down, and it broke us. That's what it did. But I lived in a canyon, and there was mining claims on this side that some people from New York, and they still would like to run them, And so I've been around mining all my life, and I really think it's really one of the big things that brought most of the people here to Idaho and started it to go. And then I went to school. I just went to high school. Well, I went to high school in Boise one year because, you always had to drive. So I went to boarding school, St. Teresa's. Then I went 2 years in Chalice. Then the year we went broke on the mine, I went with, say, to my aunt in Rupert to get an education. And then after that, after high school, I married Tom, and we ran a cattle ranch until 1989, which we, what I mean, we thoroughly think that's a good business here, but I do think the mining is the main thing here, and and then Tom and I, after we sold the ranch, we sold it to a fellow that just came up to love Stanley, and he liked the life that the Shivers did, trailing cows. We used to trail our cows, and that stopped. And when did that stop? In the year the mine started, 1989, I think. Wasn't that the last trail?
Probably.
Yes, I think. And with all that, it's taken away, things that will never be again. And that was really one of the highlights of my kids' life, is the travel, And everybody else's, they always wanted to go trail cows with us. And then my husband and I traveled a lot after we sold the ranch. Went to 5 countries and visited every state in America, in the United States. And my husband was a navigator during World War II, and that brought a change to the valley. You couldn't get very many, people, and I don't remember. BAYHORSE was running there, and my brother came home from the Korean War and got a job up here. And my brother Jimmy came home from World War II and got I think he I don't know where he went to, but it was always the mines that was hiring people here that, when they were down and out, and that was one of the main, advantages of the mines for us, And then I just loved BAYHORSE because I had both sets of the family living here, and it was interesting how people got in and out. Though they really wintered. My Ennis family, they wintered in Salt Lake and sent their kids to school there. My grandmother would go down there with them and leave them here. Now the Sullivans, they went and bought a place, Hot Springs, and that's how they made. And the freighters stopped by there and took baths and they freighted in. You might know everybody that came here. Really rich people always were looking. people that we used to see in the Salt Lake Tribune owned mining claims all over here, and that's who my grandmother cooked for a lot, you know. And of course, they liked the springs to bathe at, you know.
So when you say the Sullivan Hot Springs,
yes,
that's not the same as the Chalice Hot Springs.
No, no.
Okay.
The Chalice, I mean, the Sullivan Hot Springs is about 3 miles from Clayton.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It's been closed now for
well,
20,
yes.
30 years.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, Eugene did hold it. Yeah, but it's. Yeah, how long has Eugene been gone? About that long? Can you believe it? Yes, it has been. Yes.
Now the Sullivans come here. Good Irish name.
Oh yeah.
They migrated in. How did they get to the country here?
Well, you know, they came by train as far as Mackay, and after that was horse and buggy to come up to this way. But now my dad did own one of the first cars, and that he got married in 1922. And Dad was one of the first, but I read back there, not just one of the first to have, but they all came into Mackay, you know. And then from there, they either had the horse and buggy and to get here, you know.
Now, had they lived someplace else in the United States, or had they come?
No, my grandfather come over from Ireland at 5 years old, and that's Sullivan side. And my grandmother came from Utah, and then the Ennis side, my grandfather came from Ireland too, and my grandmother Sullivan came from Utah. Yep, they were different. One was a Mormon. Well, no, my grandpa married a Mormon girl and brought her here. And then the bishops, what I thought was so interesting, used to come here by buggy, and they baptized one of my uncles on the Ennis side, and then baptized, well, at the hot springs, you know, was that uncle, and then they baptized him and came here. Can you imagine the bishops coming by horse and buggy?
Now, where did the bishop come from?
Boise, can you imagine? No
Oh,
less.
my goodness.
But they had stops. You know, they probably stayed overnight and baptized in Mackay, and you know, then came to Chalice and baptized there, and then they came on to Bayhorse. I've got the papers. Mm-hmm. Yep, I sent for those.
Now, what was their business when the Sullivans first got here? And they were coming to the mine area, but they weren't miners exactly.
No, so my grandmother used her, you know, expertise, you know, in cooking and boarders, and Grandpa run the saloon. Yeah, and so then the Ennises, they didn't have anything but mining. My grandpa.
And here in Bayhorse.
Right here in yes, they came, and an Uncle Tom, and then Uncle Eugene came. He was my great uncle. He came here to mine, and I have a letter that 1925 he wrote to my Aunt Sadie, and he said, that was 1921, he said, I hear Bayhorse is booming again, so it must have boomed by his letter in 1921. Because that's when our generation was being born, you know what I mean, because he wrote and congratulated on his son that she had named after Uncle Eugene. And the Ennises just came here from mining, period.
Yep.
How they got word of it, I guess because...
That'd be interesting how they heard about Bayhorse.
Yes, it would be.
No clues on
No clues. I don't have any clues on that.
that. And they stayed in the mining business.
Yeah, well, let me tell you, when did... they went back, and my grandmother died in Peoria, Illinois, and my grandpa was in Utah, and he got gallbladder, and they had to, you know what I mean, and then he died there, and they shipped them. But they did go between Salt Lake and here they had a home in Salt Lake, and that's where he was buried, you know, because...
So they'd summer here and mine.
Yeah,
and
then they would go down to send their kids to school. No, the men probably stayed right here. That's what I assume, yes.
So the mines, as far as you know, probably work quite a bit of the year round.
Well, yes, I imagine.
Okay.
I imagine, yes.
Now, what did they do in the mines? Are you familiar with what their particular profession was? I mean,
No, only my dad was a superintendent, I know, and ran you know what I mean, for, you know, good many years. He was born here, if you can imagine, then he went to school down in Salt Lake, what the education he did get. You know, this wintertime, they sent him down there.
So he was born here in Bayhorse.
Yeah, right up that picture did I show you that little picture? And this is the picture was taken 1939 when my aunt came out from Chicago, and of course the first thing, that was a house right up the road. Dirt floor, dirt roof. Yeah, imagine all 7 of them, and then one of them drowned, 2 years old, in the creek there, in the creek up here, and she's buried up in the cemetery up here. You knew there was a cemetery, didn't you? Uh-huh. Yes. Yes.
Well, what was it like as a younger person growing up in this area?
Well, I think they had a lot of fun. I've got pictures of when Mom was a teenager and her sister and them all coming to BAYHORSE. They had a lot of dances. That's one thing. Dancing was so popular in every town I ever knew. And they would come up here and they'd have dances. And I know they had, when Mom and Dad were married, the people, a lot of them, the owners were from New York, and they bought Mom and Dad a set of silverware from Tiffany's that could be melted back into silver dollars. There was quite a rich, so you know, and that was a roaring 20s, and they freely spent their money.
Yeah. Outside money from New York.
Yeah.
Fueling jobs in Idaho.
Yeah. Yeah, and and I don't know. Now, my dad was always a lover of mines and into it, but the Sullivans weren't. They were but my Uncle Corny and my Uncle Will, and they all. I've got pictures of that. Where's the with a lot of them. Somebody said you've got more relatives in BAYHORSE than anybody else. You know, both sides still came back to work when when their parents were just. One was born here. They came back to work. Later. So this was quite a long-running mine.
Oh yeah, actually up until the 70s.
Yes. It's been on again.
On again, off again.
Again, yes, it has. Yes, truly.
Now, did they ever own the mines, or were they always working for someone?
They were always working. My family were. My families were always, working for those people, like the ones that came from New York, for sure.
The investors.
The investors, yes.
Now, did you ever get to know?
Yeah.
See this mic.
How's the wind?
You bet.
The wind's
Thank you.
pretty good.
I'm hearing
you
it
bet.
come up, and
Yeah, but it's kind of mostly coming from the back, so yeah, it's perfect.
So it was your great-grandpa that owned the saloon, Sullivan?
No, my grandpa.
Oh, your grandpa.
Yeah, my grandpa. Yeah, all both sides were, you know what I mean. My mother was born down the end of the line, so my grandpas were, I never knew either my grandpas, no.
So he wasn't in mining?
No, per se, no.
Yeah, he
A
was
saloon
just
keeper.
saloon keeper.
Very good business in that.
Yeah, I was going to say he probably
in
did
the
better.
mining community. Well, and the question just came up. What did they do during Prohibition?
Well, I wonder. That I don't know. They didn't tell me. I know what they did with the gold. Yeah. But the gold coins, that was against the law too. And you know what my relative did? They saved them and put them away and gave some to me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was one thing, yes.
So they were saloon keepers here
Yeah.
during the late 1800s?
Yeah. When was Uncle Will born here? 1887.
Okay.
Yeah, 1887.
So they were here during the peak.
Yeah. Was that Prohibition then?
No, that
I don't think so, not till the
more like
20s, no.
So
Yeah.
how long did he have his saloon?
Moon here. Well, you know what? My grandmother didn't like it here so well, and she went out looking for other land, and she's the one that, I would say, 3 years. 3 years. But the relatives from back east came, and I know I've heard this many a time. There was like 16 or 17 saloons here, and they were quite cultured people, and they said, my grandpa was a black sheep of the family, and they said, well, you can't raise those kids out here. So they took him back to Chicago and kept him 7 years, the two oldest. And then they had one here, and then Grandma said, I just read the note. I said, I went and sent a picture of Grandma and Grandpa and 2 boys that were, 3 boys. Was it 3 boys I showed Jan today? It was it was just Uncle Will and Uncle Jerry that was the picture taken of here in BAYHORSE, which they had a lovely picture. My grandmother had, fancy dress on, and my grandpa's suit.
So why didn't they want the kids raised here?
Because it was too wild. Yeah, and a lot of people died with their boots on here too. You know what that meant? Yeah. Yeah, it was quite wild.
So the miners did not have a great reputation for being gentlemen.
Well, I would just say there was a lot of... now, I never heard of anyone that I knew in the families that shot, but, people come along and went to work here, Or maybe they didn't tell me either. No, I don't. Mining towns were known as quite, you know, and as I said, there was a good business in saloons in those days. Yeah, I've got the paper where, you know, my uncle, Eugene, he was my great uncle, sold it to Grandpa, you know, the kegs of whiskey, the kegs, everything was kegs, you know, the cigars, yes.
Now,
Yes.
where'd they get their material from? Is that coming out of Salt Lake?
I really think so, because the Shivers side, my husband's side, he hauled stuff from Corrine, Utah. You know, he was a freighter from there, and see, that's all there was to do in those days. Is you needed some. There are a lot of freighters.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they made good business. You know, if you had good horses, and the Shivers had good horses. So.
And is that how the Shivers family got up here, because of the freighting, and then took up agriculture?
Yeah. Well, yes. Tom's grandpa sent for a horse from England. That side was more well-to-do, and sent for a horse from England, and then took it to the hills and bred it to all the mares and made his money. But then they bought 5 ranches. They were more they came for just ranching. Mm-hmm. They came from Malad, Idaho, and they Malad, Yeah, and he bought a ranch for each kid. My family wasn't that industrious, so you know, it took a lot. But they made good in freighting too, though. In those days, there was a lot of freight that came in. You know, yeah, they kept things going.
So, in your life, you grew up, born in Clayton.
Yeah, raised up on a ranch above Clayton.
Squaw Creek.
Squaw Creek,
Which is now right below Thompson Creek Mine.
Yes, and they bought our ranch. Yeah, Thompson bought our ranch.
And then did you live in Chalice and go to school in Chalice and then over to...
No, I went to school in Clayton grade school and then had to board out. You know, we didn't have school buses. You know, even the war came along and that, you know, people just didn't have the money like they used to. Mm-hmm. So I always had to board out my high school.
How many kids in the Clayton schoolhouse?
Well, let's see. I bet there was 2 rooms. When I was going to school, there was about 30 in the, you know, in the higher grades, you know, and then about 20 in the, you know, there. Clayton was a good, you know, people came there a lot and got jobs off and on there in Clayton too.
Clayton was a big town.
Yeah, well, yeah, they really.
The Clayton mine
yeah,
was running steady.
And one of the biggest, you know, biggest producing silver mines in Idaho. Yes, it was.
And they had a very consistent employment over
here. Yeah, they did.
Running 15, 20
yeah, all the time. And then I don't know whether that earthquake put them out altogether, but I don't think that it was going down slowly. That wasn't it, the Clayton, I think. Yeah.
Were you there when the smelter was running?
Nope, I was not there when the smelter was running. Nope, I wasn't there. I'm old, but I'm not that.
Well, I didn't remember.
No, I don't. No, I was. No, I wasn't. I never remember that.
Okay.
No, and I was born in 1928, and ever since I knew that smelter, looked just about, you know, yeah, no, I wasn't.
And that would have been right in the middle of the Depression too.
Yeah, it was the starting of the Depression. Yes. Yes, and things were tough then. Even in my time, they weren't freighters, but the people came in from Mackay with big trucks, you know, to sell us stuff, you know. What I remember mostly is those great big bars of chocolate, you know, and they used to have to whack them with a big knife, you know, and we bought our flour and our sugar and by the 100 pounds.
Yes.
Yes, things have changed.
Now, were you around in the Yankee Fork when the dredge was going?
No, well, the dredge, yes, I was there. You know, used to go up there, and yeah, I was here during those dredge years.
Did you ever? You didn't live up in there.
No, I didn't. No, there was quite a bit of people up there.
Yeah.
Yes, I had a girlfriend.
And these communities, was there competition between the schools?
Well, I don't think so. I think everybody was, you know, just had their own, you know, little community. Then every community finally built a store. Like when the CCs came in, my Aunt Sadie went and built a store, you know, because it was next to a CC camp, you know. And that really helped. You remember the CC? You probably don't remember
the
CC. No, you don't remember the CCs yet.
You've got me beat by about 10 years.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
So now, Why don't you describe what the ranching community was like here? You and Tom took up a ranch
Yes.
immediately,
Uh-huh.
and he was always involved in the community.
Yes, uh-huh. Well, I'll tell you what. Cow prices during our tenure of our 60-year, we weren't on the ranch for, we sold out in 89. And so we were with the ranching over, 50 years or so. And the ranching business was, the cow business, I should say cows, yes, was up and down like this. The minute we sold the ranch, the cows started to go up. You know, so you wouldn't get our taxes. We kept the cows and we, let, what do you call it when you let other people take care of you? Yeah. And made more money that year. And prices have just steadily gone up. Of course, the price, but that's, boy, we used to go out, when we always went to the meetings and everything else, and even to the national meetings, trying to figure ways to get cow prices high. We were sort of like door to door, put on little cook-offs and everything to get. And I would say just after we sold our ranch in '89, the prices have just gone unbelievable right now, some of them.
So when you were ranching, did you sell your cows in chalice to miners, or did they
No,
go?
we always shipped them out. We had cow buyers come in.
Okay.
And we did have really good cows because they were raised in Stanley Basin, no ticks, that was a good market for us, yeah. Oh, cow buyers always came and,
Right.
So a
Yeah.
buyer would circulate annually and look at
yo,
your
you
stock
bet, a
and-
lot of them.
Yep.
Yeah, we always had a lot of cow buyers, yes, yes.
Did they bid against each other, or
Well,
hard to make them?
my husband was one of these. He knew the good cow buyers and the good words, and they could sell the cows with a shake of a hand. And they stick by it. And that's who my husband would always say. Well, he was sick one year and he thought scared I was going to have to sell them, and he just said, "You get that buyer and you go with him because he's honest and trustworthy, and what he says he'll give you will." Yeah, don't worry. There was some, they did want to maneuver, but cow buyers in those days were pretty darn good. But now when Tom's dad, in the Depression, he had to put him on a train, and he kept him going all winter around until he gained enough. They would stop at, that was a terrible time, not with the cows. We didn't have anything like that,
Now, where would he ship them to?
Well, they go always Nebraska. It was always Nebraska.
Omaha.
Omaha, yes, that was the main place that I know of, yeah. But you never let them take a cow off your place without having the money right in your... Yeah.
So you had donated quite a few documents to the Interpretive Center.
Uh-huh.
One of the letters was from Dooley Wheeler
Uh-huh.
asking Tom to be like a ranch manager. Dooley was
Yeah.
wanting to buy a ranch.
Yes, he did.
And he was asking Tom to run it for him. Did
Yeah.
he ever do that?
No, we didn't, because Tom always figured that people like that. Dooley said there was a lot of mineral on our ranch. Dooley had been all over the world, and I think that's what truly had at heart. Yeah, he did, and we really thought the world of Dooley. But Tom said people think that you can make more money off those ranches than you can get off them in those days. You know what I mean? And he said, "I'm not going to do that ever." No, that's right. Yeah.
So he just managed your ranch.
Yeah,
and
just
didn't-
manage ours, yes. We were in a partnership with two other brothers, had 3 ranches, and that was enough. And we got out of the partnership too, yeah. But Dooley truly thought BAYHORSE had a lot of potential.
How did you meet Dooley?
Oh, how did we meet him? I think through the Swiggerts many years ago. Then he had us up to dinner when he loved BAYHORSE and I think that's how we met him, through Ruby, I think. I don't know. I can't read that. That's many years ago.
Well, did your ranch ever sell to some of the mines up here, the boarding houses, or?
No, we never did things like that. My dad one year, when I was a kid, made a refrigerator and put down, and he would go around selling meat, like to Robinson Bar, those places that were resorts. My dad did that. But truly nobody ever made any money, that way off of the cow business. Yep.
So we had a question earlier about how meat and produce were kept cool,
Yeah.
like in the Sullivan's time,
Uh-huh,
their
yeah,
grandfather's
yeah.
time.
Well,
Do you ever know?
Yeah,
Here?
they had ice boxes, and some had the ice lift the lid off the top of it. But before that, we put up ice at our ranch. You know what I mean? Sawdust. You know, you could put up ice and do that. You know, and have that. And then they had some cupboards that they put their milk in, but it didn't do too good. Then they'd put wet. Hang wet gunny sacks. You know, clean gunny sacks over and be all the way around, you know, to keep that. But we did have ice. People learned how to put up ice. And then in the summer, when you really needed quite a bit, one rancher would butcher a cow and divide it up. And then as soon as everybody was out, the next rancher would...
Oh, so you kind of shared.
They shared in the summertime. In the wintertime, they went and... My dad cured a lot of, you know, the pork. He could cure pork. And of course, if you had your own cows, you did, but in the winter, it wasn't a problem.
So as far as Grandpa Sullivan here in Bayhorse, you're not quite sure how he kept any of
No,
his
I'm
things?
not. I sure couldn't tell you. I sure could, but I bet they had their ice houses. Well, in fact, there is a cave along here someplace where there's, but there's ice year round in there. Yeah. So they,
Over by Ramshorn.
Yeah. So they were, you know, probably took advantage of that too, you know. I'm quite sure. They had to with a big boarding house and a lot of men. In one article that I read, they said there were 700 men here, like in 1918. Well, my aunt said in the papers I was reading, I was only, she was a school teacher. My aunt, Laura Sullivan, came and taught school here. And she said I was only girl with 700 men. But what she was trying to brag that she's popular. Now, I don't know whether there were 700 men at that time or not. You know what?
That sounds a little large.
It does a little large, little, don't you?
I think the peak was 600.
Was
and that
it?
was in 1887, so that
Was
was
that-
earlier than the 19.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And Chinese came here to work too, you knew that.
Have you ever heard stories about the Chinese working here?
About who working
The
here?
Chinese?
Yeah, the only thing I ever heard is when my grandfather happened to be Irish Catholic, and so he was showing the bishop around, and the bishop made a joke. You know, Chinese weren't in favor then. That's sad. But I mean, and so the bishop made a remark. He said, "Well, and they had their hair in a queue and had some green ribbon around it, and the bishop said, "Well, I see some of your relatives got here, Con." Well, I guess it didn't go over too big. No, I never heard. I heard the Chinese weren't treated, not here, were treated too good, you know. Poorly.
Throughout Idaho and the Pacific.
All over, wasn't that? Yeah, some Chinese had you know, laundries down in Chalice and all that. And
A lot of gardens.
yes, a lot of gardens is right.
Now, did the ranch community have a grange here?
A grange here, not here. They did in Chalice, you know. Yeah.
So
And one over in Persimmon too, and that's still called the Grange Hall. Yeah, they had a grange there.
Is that Grange Hall still around now?
That Grange Hall is still going in Persimmon.
Oh, but not the one in Chalice?
No, I don't. Well, you know what? They've changed it from dance halls to this. You know, I think there was a Grange Hall in. I'm sure.
Well, what were the other social connections that the ranch community used? You know, when you got together, was there time to get together?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Say dancing. They had big dance hall. That was, you know, there'd be 2 dances going on at Chalice at once. The Christmas and Thanksgiving, everybody always seemed to come home, you know. But we had dances up, and in Stanley the same way. People went dances.
That would be an overnight venture.
Well, yeah. Get home in the morning.
Well, Ruby was saying they used to go to a lot of dances in Stanley.
Yes.
And then, did you ever go?
Oh,
at the
did I?
same
Yes.
time?
Give my mother gray hairs, you know. Come home, you know, they'd play till late in the morning, you know. I learned to go to the dances with my folks, you know. Yeah, and that was an activity that everybody took. And I think it's a shame they still don't have it. Because it's good exercise.
Ruby remembers how Chalice was dirt roads until
Oh,
she
yes.
was in high school. The main street was paved. but she talked about doing that Highway 75 now.
Yeah.
To Stanley being one lane dirt road.
Yes.
So,
Oh
do
yes.
You remember
Oh
that?
yes. See, yes.
Was it scary?
Yeah. Well, you know what? There was anybody that came in from the outside was always scared, but you know, I was just raised with those. Came along the Salmon River to go to school, and the Salmon River to go to salmon. Yeah. Well, it was scary. There was, but people couldn't go as fast then as they do now.
And you probably didn't travel during the heavy snowstorms in winter.
Well, no, because they didn't have the graders out. I remember missing school, you know what I mean, because we had called it the Camel Lane because that one ran, and we couldn't get through it. People didn't have that many graders. But I think now we're so much better off than since I've been traveling. You go back east or even to Boise, when it snows, you can't get around. They don't come with their graders. I don't understand it. So, they, later on in years, people got their own graders too, even where I am now, I had relatives that...
Oh, particularly on a ranch.
Yes, yeah,
Or a small cabin.
Yeah, yeah, we always had that.
Well, and Mom, when you were young, you always talked about winning the horse and sleigh.
Oh, yes. Now, that's one thing, that we always went by sleigh. Now, we couldn't get to Stanley to see my aunt, and this is no lie, people. 40 below zero, we went to Stanley but we had a wagon like this on the sleigh. It was this tall, and we took rocks this big, and we had great big kettles of stew. And I asked my aunt, she just died last month, and I said, to confirm all these stories, I asked my oldest brother. He said, yes, one of our horses fell in the river, and they said, how come it'd be frozen over in Stanley? There was a hot stream right in Lower Stanley, but they nearly couldn't hardly save him. And they said at Robinson Bar we had to stop and get some more hot stuff because the rocks had fallen through the panel of the sleigh. Yeah, and that's the only way you could get. And of course, we knew that my aunt would be lonesome, so we went to sleigh. Then we go to the Redbirds. That was another mine just above us. And sleigh.
And on Squaw Creek or...
Squaw Creek, right? The Henry Ford owned that mine, for good...
Yes.
Yeah, Henry Ford owned that. And my uncle, stayed there. And that was another one that ran, but I never remember it running per se, like...
I don't think they ever made any money on it.
They didn't, is that right?
Yeah. It would start and stop.
See,
Ran a lot. It didn't produce a lot.
And I just lived a short while, but that's how we'd travel by good, sturdy sleighs, and good horses.
Now, how did it fall in the river?
Well, I don't know, and that I don't know, because it did have to have some ice when you think about it. It was old Shiner, and Jimmy said they could barely save him. They used all the blankets they could, to dry him off. It's right across. Do you know where Woolies have a place? And he bought an African lion and raised it there in the wintertime. But now I said, no, I don't. There must have been something because he fell down in it. And Jimmy said there was a barn right, and he...
Because the warm water...
Yeah, it kept it, but they were froze. He said, we barely saved that old Shiner. And then I was 40 below zero when I was born in 1928 in Clayton. And they had to put, blankets up to the windows. But a doctor still came, but I was born before he got there. Jensen from Mackay. I can't imagine 40 below anybody coming out.
Especially for Mackay.
They're Mackay, and you know how big their tires were too. And I still got the check. Dad paid $75, and somebody said that was too much, but I said, lots of money then, I guess. Yes.
Now, when you were living on the ranch, did you grow pretty much your own food?
No, we didn't. Our place was not a good place. We lived right next to the river. Our ranch was right next to the river, and we raised. Sometimes but no, we didn't. So
you buy your groceries?
Yes, but what we always did, yes. Yeah.
Well, Chalice can get pretty cold, too. So
well, Chalice is really known as a banana belt. Did you know that? Yeah, it really is. You could go out to salmon and just terrible storms. You can go out to Idaho Falls in the wind in the cold and go to Stanley and Chalice. A lot of people came and ranged their... not range their cows, but brought their cows to, my cousin did in the winters, brought them to Chalice.
Well, Yeah, so always from the Stanley Basin, they would.
Oh, yeah, of course, always Stanley Basin we brought. That was 8 ranchers from Chalice that owned that, ran our cows there.
Who were those?
Oh, it was, there were just 2 in 1935. Peavy's and Jeannie's in 1935, and then not Peavy's, Jeannie's and Shivers. Then Peavy's joined us, Helms, and they've sold out there, and who else, Ann? Wilson's. Starks, yeah.
They were much later.
Yeah. That was a different, bunch there. But my cousin and a lot of, from Persimmon, I brought their cows, over to down into, yeah. And I don't know really a lot, but I know that they did.
Now, when you trailed out of the Stanley area, did you trail together with those other groups?
Well, we some, but generally we had one herd to go, and you know what I mean, and then another herd, a day between. But then they got all mixed up when they got up there anyway. But no, the truth is, we had other range along the way that we were grateful that other ranchers didn't have. You had range rights like you do today. And some of our range right was up by Torrey, and we used to camp there 2 weeks to range our cows all through that area. Yes, you see? And the other ones had to go straight through. But you could let a cow go from our ranch. Some of them that did that. They could leave one morning and be there and that night easy. They were just, of course, people by horseback, travel, they had to do that. You know what I mean? Because I know that my Uncle Phil was born and they sent a horse. They went by horses, and boy, those horses were good horses,
So Stanley to here a one-day run, a good hard run-day run.
Yeah.
And you could move cattle that way.
Yeah, yes. But we didn't. We took quite a while because it's better to take a while anyway, yes. Yeah, and they had to go if it wasn't true range, they had to move on and...
Right.
How long would it take, Stanley, to
Chalice.
if you didn't stop by horseback?
Back.
Was it
Well,
just like,
I bet, what would you think? Ann rode horses a lot more than I did.
I never did that. I bet at least a half a day.
okay.
They did have good horses, too.
You'd have to have a really good horse.
Yes, you would. But that's what some people put on, what I mean, prided themselves on. That was my husband's pride, having the best horses in the valley and having...
You made it back from the dances.
Yes.
From early morning to late early morning. 3-4 hours makes sense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Even though it was. Well, you know what? You wouldn't want to go back. I like all the new stuff. But I do miss a lot of the old things we had,
And such, which ones?
Well, like trailing the cows, the kid, the grandkid just loved it, the ones we had that could go with us,
And that doesn't happen anymore at all.
Oh,
Totally gone.
no, that's totally gone, for sure. No, I like not churning butter, making bread, you name it. It was good. Yeah, I can't say that the food isn't sometimes as good, but it's good enough for me, yeah.
Now, did you have outside ranch help on your ranch?
Yes, always did. Yes,
So
always.
you had riders that were working.
Yeah, we had riders in Stanley for sure. We had to, hire riders, from the beginning we got there. And what my son did was really good. He got it and took it over in the summer and started running a kids ranch, which went over pretty big. He didn't charge near enough, and they came from back east. And then Tom and I'd go over and when he was a school teacher, then we go take over in the fall, for him. And of course, I guess that's what I liked about it, and then I always had to have hired help on the ranch.
Did they stay there in?
Yeah, we had
bunkhouse?
a bunkhouse for them, or yes, or then the ones if we hired them from, they could live in town, come out, yes, yep. But a lot of, I got a little peeved at my husband. Yeah, he'd go to Stanley in the fall, then leave me with some people I didn't know at all.
Where did these ranch hands come from?
Well, all over. It's amazing.
They're just migrating around.
Migrating around. Some young kids from Dillon, Idaho, Montana that didn't know a thing. And then some, then in Tom's time, they got people, when things were low, really good men to come and stay in the bunkhouse. Very good workers. And they did during my time too. Art Bradley, you know, we kept him for 7 or 8 years, you know. We had, that's not all true, you know what I mean. It was just like with the economy, you know what I mean, people looking for better, you know, and then it changed from horses to machinery. Yep.
So do you ever remember any of the miners that were maybe working at Bayhorse that were just done and maybe wanted to come work for a rancher? Did that ever happen?
Well, yes, I'm sure that did. I just know that, you know, yes. Yeah, that probably, you know, happened quite a bit. Now, my dad went to work for Ruby's dad. Isn't that funny? He was an Italian. The Italians all seemed to come and mine then buy a ranch. That's what they did. They come and, yeah, they always came to mine. And did Ruby tell you that her grandmother, or her mother sold vegetables to the, yes.
Yeah.
I got that. Dooley gave me a bunch of his stuff, but I gave it back before you know, they bought vegetables from Mrs. Peavy all the time, you know. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So your Ennis family, they were here at Bayhorse, or?
Yeah, they moved here to Bayhorse. So they say they had 7 children up in that little house I showed you in this book, yes. Yeah, they stayed like from, it was 1889, Mary was born up here, so we know she must have got here 1889, and Uncle Ed was born about 1902, you know. So they stayed all those years here.
And so they were miners.
Miners, yes, yes. And they were miners back in Illinois, so they tell me, too.
Oh, okay.
You know, and Pittsburgh. They originally came from Pittsburgh, you know, and that was all mining country. So that's what the Ennises and the Lanes knew,
Yeah. So it's interesting that they got here.
Yeah, it is, isn't it interesting? Why would you even, I can't imagine someone say, come with me, we'll get on a train and go to where I don't know. There's no lunches or restaurants along the way.
So do you think the Sullivans and the Ennises, did they like Bayhorse? Did they have good memories? Because I have read some letters from some families where they just thought of it as a prison. Did you ever get that?
Well, now my grandma, my Aunt Anna wrote and told me. My mother didn't. But when I was having her, you know, getting some of this history, I wrote. She said my mother said she was going to get out of Bayhorse or what. So she took a buggy down the road and looked and found Sullivan Hot Springs. Now how she found Sullivan Hot Springs? Probably just somebody with a little cabin on there, and.
Did they homestead that, or did they buy?
Well, no, they bought that because there was a fellow already there. Yes, But they had somebody to do the swimming pools. There was one, you know, cool one to swim on and a hot one up above, you know, yes.
Now, did that operate as a commercial for the local community for the most part?
Oh, yes, yes. Everybody loved to go there because they had a piano and they had a bunch of good-looking girls. And so that was a good meeting place. I just read that.
You mean the Sullivan girls?
Yeah, the Sullivan girls, yes, the Sullivan girls. Yes, and yeah, the Sullivan girls. I just read that when I was reading my Aunt Anna's, you know. I sent her a picture, and I didn't realize it was taken up here in Bayhorse. They must have had really good photographers come in, you know. That one was a regular photographer that took that.
They had a couple of really good photographers.
Yes, sir, they must have, yes.
Very early.
Yeah, between Custer and Bayhorse, we have a lot of old photographs.
Yes, sir.
And so there must have been a photographer
They
that
came
had-
up, didn't they?
Yeah,
Yes.
just amazing, the pictures.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, so I know some of them. We've gotten a lot of records from you, and we've gotten some great pictures from you. A little bit later time period, but they're great.
Yeah.
You know.
It is. It's amazing, didn't they?
And Mom, you always told the story that when Grandma first moved here, she hated it too.
Oh, yeah. My mother despised it. Yeah, and she went and took a set of dishes. She was at Ramshorn and just threw them over the cliff. She got one plate left, and I've got that. Yeah, Mom didn't like it either. No. Too much.
Why? Just the isolation?
Yeah, the isolation, I think, yes. And Mom was very social, you know, liked it. And she lived up there with Mama. No, Mom didn't like it either. That's right, Ann.
Now, there'd be a difference, though, living at the Ramshorn and living in town in Bayhorse. In the sense...
Well, I don't know that.
So she was up at the
Ramshorn, yes.
as the
Yeah.
bunkhouse.
Yes, yeah.
And she cooked up there?
No, Mom didn't do a thing. No, she was just, you know, with the her 2 boys, you know, yeah.
And then there was probably a bunch of miners.
Miners just up there, yes, probably was, yeah. And I don't remember them saying anything about, you know, any thing at that time. When she was a young girl, there used to be dances, you know, and I've got pictures of them all together. You know, things do come and go.
Sometimes good.
Yeah.
Well, and probably being up there, it was, especially in the winter
But
time.
you couldn't get down, no.
Yeah.
You sure couldn't get down in the winter time. I imagine with the way that road looks. You know, I've never been up to Ramshorn.
Oh.
No, one of these same, somebody offered it, said they were going to do it, but I never did get up to Ramshorn. Just had all the... So there was just 600 here at one time, huh?
Well, in the late 1800s, that's one estimate we have. Yeah, but as far as going into the 1900s, we've got some census, but I'm not sure how they skip years, what years we have.
But it got so low the post office ends in the 30s.
Yeah, the post office finally closed because there
Uh-huh.
wasn't enough people here.
I have some, I think just 2 envelopes stamped with Boise. Bayhorse said I had sense enough to keep. There was that, there wasn't there.
Now, how long was the Sullivan Hot Springs a commercial operation?
Gee, I can tell you, they moved down in 1980. I can't say it started then because they probably had to, evacuate all that dirt out of the pools. You see what I'm getting at. To about 1989 and that, yes. And then they, how they got built that. So my cousin told me they floated logs down the river, from Stanley. And, Chase Clark was here, and we knew him well. He ran Robinson Bar,
Right.
And he was my grandmother's lawyer and that, And I've got some history on that, and I don't know what I did with it. But, just like him with the cows. One time, of course, he was a lawyer. He turned cows out, and they were going to, send him up for... And we went to court and saved it because they didn't have any, hay, and they couldn't keep them in. And I don't think there was much grass out there either. But yeah, yeah, they had quite a bit of ingenuity. They were hard workers, those people. Now, I don't think my grandfather built the place. He probably hired people to build the homes, and I don't know who built it. It was a big house in those days, They had rooms upstairs and.
At Sullivan's Hot.
Yeah, Hot Springs, yes. But they washed by hand, and.
Did they have overnight accommodations for guests?
I don't know that. I bet they did though. But mainly it was nobody could afford to go stay. It was all freighters, and rich miners coming in. I remember the ones I talked about in Stanley. I mean, in the Salt Lake, and we used to get the Salt Lake Tribune and see their pictures in the paper, but they came up to check on their claims, Oh, I can't remember the name of their claims. What were their name? But very prominent family in Salt Lake, that always stayed there. Remember there was no hotels or stuff like that, or motels, yeah.
So, go ahead.
Well, no,
That wind kicks up and they're worried about the sound.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, believe it or not, it sounded good.
It's, when that comes up a couple of times.
I'm probably yelling enough you can hear my voice.
Well, that's helpful.
Yeah.
Well, now, what was Tom was very active in the community. Why don't you describe some of his community service as a prominent local rancher?
Well, he was first started out the stewardship that Frank Church started, Chalice was, went in as the first place that they started taking the range rights away, and Tom helped start that, the stewardship. And Frank Church was the one that thought that would solve a lot of our cow problem, but sorry, we're still having them. And then he was a county commissioner for 8 years, and he was on the telephone board for 40 years, and he was on the hospital board for 5 years. I wish I brought his obituary. And, you name it, he was on it. And What else?
Cattlemen,
Yeah, yep, mhm, yep, yep.
you did top 4-H.
Yeah, tart for H, and then what? Yeah, what else in the very busy, you know, in the cattlemen's. As I said, we used to try everything to get our cow prices up, but I don't know what got them up, but they sure went soaring. And what else? What else? Of course, he taught 4-H, and the kids. One of the we left out that he was a county commissioner, and that made our son. We said, well, you should have written that. So, and of course, we were busy with our 8 children. Now, living in Chalice, we had to travel out to basketball games and everything, and that was, you know, many a time with kids. And you know, see, Chalice was in with Ledore and West Jefferson and Sugar Salem. We were in that group of people, and Teton. And they were some of the best, right, locally, and so was High School Rodeo. You know, they were very. I don't know how it's gone now. I think it's all changed, but our district was pretty darn good in that stuff. But we were kept busy.
I was just thinking, you know, 8 children, running a
Yeah.
ranch, all those social connections.
Yes, very many,
You would
yes.
have been running.
Yeah, we would. And you know what? And we're even running more now with all the weddings after, you know, 26 grandchildren and 26 great-grandchildren. We're either going to a baptism or a wedding or a what else and are we going to? Well, the ones that well-to-do, they're coming out and renting a big house so we can go stay with them, and they'll have something. They're always having something. That's one thing. The Sullivans were that's where my kids got all this, giving parties all the time.
So when you say the big house, which big
Yeah.
house are you talking about?
What's that?
When you say they all come stay out at the big house,
They're going to write they bought a bunch of land out here. Where did they buy that land, Ann, Patricia?
Oh, in Garden Valley.
Yeah, in Garden Valley. And so she'd go to, and she dreamed of coming back here to Idaho. Well, you know, when you got kids back in Nebraska, they're not just likely to want to come back. You know, she didn't think that. So she's going to come out there and rent a place for us up there someplace, yeah. Yes, and then have all the families come. Because we got 4 that live in Boise and one in Buell, and they managed to come home quite a bit, you know.
oh good.
Yes, it is. It's really lovely, and yeah, yeah.
Well, how's Chalice changed in the community in the last, let's say, 30 years, 40 years?
Oh gosh. And you should. Your school. She was a district grad. You should be able to tell that more about teaching. The culture hasn't changed more. That's one thing. It's.
With the mine, there was lots of, you know, the broom and the bus. We went through so many bus. As a school teacher, every year it was a bus.
Yes,
because
yeah.
they wanted to lay everybody off because they didn't have anyone to stay.
Right.
That's, yeah. And, yeah, we saw a lot with the mine, a lot of
Yeah,
changes.
yes. And one thing I should never say about the government, one thing the government brought us is the Forest Service people in. And the ladies always were good to join in to teach 4-H, you know, and teach all that. That was one of the pleasures, you know, we had. And we knew them all and got together. Now, you know, when the mine comes in, you know, you don't know the people like it, but the stability you had that way, you know.
Well, we're about to go through that again. The mine has
Yes.
radically reduced
Yes.
employment. And with graduation, families will be leaving.
Yes. But Ann told me that you'd be surprised the families that stayed.
Well, until school was
The
out.
school was out, I guess, yes, you know, until they could, yes.
So boom and bust has been part of this community.
For quite a while, yes, yeah, forever, yes. You learn how to go with the flow,
Tighten up.
yes, yes.
So one question. How do you feel about Bayhorse now? Because Ruby gave us her
Yes,
opinion about it.
Yeah.
What do you think about Bayhorse as far as the town site?
Yeah.
Are you glad that it's where it's at, or do you wish something different had happened?
no, I'm glad that it's being preserved this way, really I am. Now that's my point of view, very glad. What was Ruby's point of view?
Not that.
No, I bet it wasn't.
It lost some character.
Yeah.
It lost what?
It lost character.
Yeah, in her eyes.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we've lost a lot of buildings, and that's something we're
Well,
trying
yes,
to. We're
yeah.
still trying
But
to
I
save
think
on.
that you can still tell the story. We always, Tom and I, on our travels, just love to go to the, Virginia City and all those places. We should have started sooner on BAYHORSE.
Yes.
Right. Exactly.
That's what should have happened.
Dooley wouldn't sell it.
No, that's right. He
He
wouldn't.
tried
Get,
1990.
he wouldn't get.
Well, and then once we did get it, it was a matter of having the grant money or the
Yes.
funds to do stabilization.
Yes. Yeah.
But we're starting now to try and to get more of that.
Yes.
You know.
Well, now truly I do. I'm glad because both sets of my grandparents, and I'm glad they're, preserving what they did of it, and let them know what did happen here. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
They were a tough people.
Oh,
And
very
the
tough.
story does need to be told.
Yes, it does.
With
Yes.
what we have left.
Yes.
building
That's
wise.
right. That's what I was going to say. Maybe that's the biggest mistake that
Right.
it wasn't started sooner. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. Nope. I'm very glad because I felt like I knew every bit of this. When I was, we used to come. As I said, I didn't know why I was always so in love with it, but I was. And especially when my aunt came back from Washington D.C. and wanted to go see where she was born. You know what I mean, and all that. And so every year we come up here on a picnic or something, and it draws me anyway.
Yeah.
Very much.
Well, I think everyone that's been here has been really impressed. I mean, when you come here,
Yeah.
there's enough here to tell a story.
Sorry, and that's what I've heard too. They really are very impressed by it. Yes.
It's not as big as some of the other towns, but
Yeah.
it's we get a lot of Europeans that say it's so new.
Do
love
they?
that
Is
it's
that
old, but they love that it's so new.
new?
and-
Is
yeah.
that's interesting to
Yeah,
hear.
coming from Europe where everything's super old.
Oh
there,
yes.
But they're fascinated with it.
Oh, isn't it? I like to hear that. Yes, I do. I think that's very good to hear. Yeah, I'm very happy you're doing it. And someday I hope you have this little card of what my grandpa hanging.
Well,
So
tell us about-
my dad. I don't say my grandpa. I'm getting so old.
No, tell us about the car.
Show us, yeah.
Yeah. Well, can you imagine? He was evidently just a first grader because it's marked from 1988 to 1899. And look at there's his name. There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 graduated, and they put importance on that. And they must have had to send out to Salt Lake to get this material. And I think it's wonderful that they did such things. You see.
And that's the BAYHORSE School.
That's a BAYHORSE school right down here, and my aunt on the other side taught there.
And what's the year on that?
1899, 1898 to 1899. Yep. And did-
Graduating class.
Graduating class, yes. And I'm so glad that they, put their,
And this was your dad?
This is my dad, yes. And it became, now my brother said, be sure to mention that he was a very high up superintendent.
And what mine was he? Was it the Ramshorn that he was?
Yeah, the Ramshorn, yes, the Ramshorn. That's what, yeah. That was
That's the biggest mine.
Yeah, that's big. And then that fellow you're the one that called me. You wanted to know the rest of those, Japan and Pacific and Skylark and
Yeah.
Postboy and Riverview.
Did he work in all of those? Because they were all owned by
Yeah.
the same
Well,
company.
my brothers worked at different ones. You know what I mean? I would say, but I didn't know anything about my dad working at the Ramshorn. He could have too,
Yeah,
But that wasn't that the biggest Ramshorn.
it is.
Then that was the one. Yeah, and so they were married during that boom here, the Roaring 20s, and Mom and them were married down at the Sullivan Hot Springs. And you ought to see, when Tom and I were married just after the war, and we were lucky to get blankets, Mom and Dad were given the silver, I told you, crystal bowls. I mean, everything they got was elegant. And a teapot I gave Ann that they're all just, beautiful. I can't imagine how they got them in here, shipped them now, I think, but without all the...
Weren't they given a baby grand piano?
Well, that's my Sullivan. My grandpa was given a baby. He came out and then the Sullivans back there, they had four pianos given to them at their wedding. So you can see how so they shipped them out. They shipped out marble tables of the Sullivan. Everybody seemed to be much more richer than we did back here. Yeah, on the Sullivan side, they were very, very, when you're given 4 pianos, I don't know.
Wow.
No? So they shipped what was left over back to the Sullivan Hot Spring, and they just read in this paper that when they didn't have a piano in Clayton, so they used to take it down for their Christmas parties to. Now I don't know. I have an aunt that exaggerates, so she. But they took that on a wagon and take it to Clayton for. But you know, those pianos were heavy. You know.
Oh, they are still.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would think you'd get out of tune. Yeah, you're putting this in a
Yeah,
horse and
yeah.
wagon, and
Well,
Yeah.
maybe they were good at tuning them as
They,
well.
they did.
It probably had to be.
Yeah, that's the last. As I said, I do have to sort out, you know what. I was told once that my uncle on the Sullivan side was the first white child born here. But I looked up on the internet, and it was a Will Sullivan, but he was born in 1882. So I think they might have got that mixed up. So I'm trying not to tell you anything that I don't know for sure, because there's sure a lot of exaggeration.
that's a trade out of the mining community.
Well, I guess I don't know.
You know? That's how we sell mines.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, there's surely a lot of people that did bite on them, didn't they? I mean, there's claims all over.
And a lot of outside money coming in
Yes.
to keep local people employed.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
we have mine certificates for the Beardsley that William Randolph Hearst's mother owned.
Is that
And
right?
so he became her executor, and so we have his signature on some mine documents where he was taking over.
See what?
How far away it went.
Yeah.
You know.
And you know, can you imagine they believed that they would find that? Well, my dad was a miner, and he believed that he would.
There's a fellow, and I'm not sure who this came from. A lot of people claim it, but most miners think they're within 5 feet of $1 million.
Yes.
And they're really $1 million feet from $5.
Yes.
Well, did you ever get the impression that your mother was just tired of basically him being a miner?
Well, yes, I do too. Because see, when we started in this mine, when I was born, she cooked for a lot of those people, you know, and Dad was building this, you know, and it was taking a lot of the money to put into it. Yes, I'm sure.
Yeah.
If you'd been the Hearst, it would have been a different story.
Right, right. Well, I can just imagine how it would, a lot of the money would be funneled that way.
Oh yes, well,
aggravation.
lots of it, you know.
Yeah.
And then besides that, you have to ship the ore out, you know, have it smeltered someplace else. Yes, it was.
So aren't you glad you married a rancher?
Oh yes, yes, yes. It's quite a bit different. You can produce something else.
Even if the cattle prices.
Yeah. But the cattle, yeah, we've seen those until, yes. And they are enormous. I forgot. Ann and I went out to Paris. He's well-to-do, and he's getting into the cows, and I said, "You're so lucky," and he said, "I know." You know, I think they were selling some cows for $2,000 when they weren't even going for. I'm just.
How much were yours going for?
Oh my gosh!
Not
would
even
get no $1 a pound or something used to be sort of good in the day, you know, when we were. But prices were different too, though. You see what I mean? We weren't paying so much for, you know, it takes a lot.
Inflation over time.
Yes, it does. And now you have to vaccinate them for so many things. That's cow business is not an easy business, no matter if you're rich or poor. No, you've got to know it. Yes, you do, for sure. I don't know of anything else. If I did, I've forgotten everything.
I was going to say, is there anything you think we should be
No, I
asking
don't
you?
think I did put some things in here. Nope, I don't think that. I was just amazed that, you know, how people used to come in here, you know, when it was so. Because when we used to come up, the road used to be so much worse. As I said, we'd visit once a year. And look at people now, if the world was going to go this way, good for preserving it. Yeah.
And hopefully we can save more buildings before
Yes,
we lose them.
that's what I hope so too.
Yeah.
I do too. It does take quite a bit, doesn't it, to
It
get?
does. You have to get a lot of grant money. I mean, we have
Uh-huh.
a grant for just this, just
Uh-huh.
to preserve the oral oral history,
Yeah.
and that's, you know,
Yeah.
it's just as important as the buildings to
Uh-huh.
us.
Yeah. Well, tell me, what somebody saw? They saw a lot of pictures up here with women. And where's any pictures up here?
You mean?
Well, I know, and no building is there or anything like that. I have new neighbors that moved in, and they said, well, they went to Bayhorse and saw a bunch of pictures.
Well, there are on our interpretive signs.
Oh, on the
yeah.
side, on the interpretive
And
signs.
we have a lot of those were originals from either yours or Alan Getty's or even the Schweigerts. So a lot of the photos and Rivetto's.
Oh, yes,
We've got some great photos from Rivetto's as well. So yeah, we do have